Shalom Aleichem. Before Rosh Hashana, we like to summarize the idea of what Simanim, the hints, the symbolic hints are. Are they really symbolic, or they have much more substance to it? And what are the Simanim? What does it do when we actually eat those Simanim? Are we required to eat them? Let's just summarize those halachot so we come prepared for Rosh Hashanah. First, we need to know a beautiful Ramban in Parashat Lech Lecha that tells us that HaKadosh Baruch Hu brings down his elevated shefa that benefits Am Yisrael, these things that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to bring down to the world, he brings down when we do different actions to symbolize that. And then, when Hashem sees that, he brings it down. We see that this idea of Simanim have a real significance behind it. Let's see how the Ramban puts it down. In Parashat Lech Lecha again, he says, you should know, ki kol gzerat irin, all the elevated gezerot of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, anything that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to bring down to the world, from the spiritual to the physical world, kasher tetzeh mikoach gzera el poal dimyon, it comes down when we do something that symbolizes it, something that has any hint that brings that idea down from hint to the physical benefit. תהיה הגזרה מתקיימת על כל פנים. Once we do that, it definitely would come down to this world. ולכן יעשו הנביאים מעשה בנבואות. הרמב"ן brings over here different examples to that. For instance, with the prophets, they did all kind of acts to symbolize something that they requesting from HaKadosh Baruch Hu that he should do, and then it actually brought down. כמאמר ירמיה שציווה לשריה, ירמיה הנביא, the prophet ירמיה, commended, והיה ככלותך לקרוא את הספר הזה, as soon as you end reading that sefer, that book that you wrote, תקשור עליו אבן, you should tie it and attach to it a stone, and throw it down to the river of Perat, and with that, it should be a symbol that the same way it sinks into the river, ואמרת ככה תשקע בבל. Bavel also will sink the same way. Same idea with Elisha. Elisha, בהניחו זרועו על הקשת, he put his hand on the arrow, ואומר אלישע ירא ויור. ויאמר חץ תשועה להשם וחץ תשועה בארם, which means also same idea of the way the arrow was shooting, same idea would happen to Aram by the arrows of Hashem. חץ תשועה להשם וחץ תשועה בארם. ונאמר שם, ויקצוף עליו איש האלוקים, ואומר להכות 5 או 6 פעמים. אז הכית את ארם עד כלה, ואתה 3 פעמים תכה את ארם. When he hit 5 to 6 times, the same way HaKadosh Baruch Hu hit Aram 3 times. Therefore, we learn from here that the idea of the symbols that we're making has a real significance. And now we'll go into the Gemara. This Gemara that we found in Kritut, Daf Hey. The Gemara says the following. There's different ideas over there of different simanim, and then Abaye concluded and it says, Hashta de amar simanam miltau. Now that we learn that simanim has significance, it has a real meaning behind it, it's just not symbolic. Therefore, the conclusion to that should be, a person should eat on Rosh Hashanah, etrog, kara, rubia, karti, silka, tamre, rubia, and so on and so forth. We learn what it is, and then Rashi explains over here, and he says that each one was for the reason that it has the same sound as the bracha that we are pointing to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and hinting to HaKadosh Baruch Hu that should bless us with. Rubia, for instance, when we're talking about the rubia, which we would call the black-eyed pea, yirbu zchuyotenu, because it's the same words. Rubia, yirbu. Karti, ikarutu sonenu. Salka, istalku evenu. Tamre, itamu sonenu. And so on. And therefore, there's different minhagim, says the Tur brings this down, also the Shulchan Aruch in Siman Tafkuf Pei Gimel, and he says that the minhagim differ from Ashkenaz to places to Sephardi places. Some places bring as well an apple, they dip it in the honey, and they say with that, Titchadesh Alenu Shana Tova, and so on and so forth. They bring also a head of a sheep, and they also say that we should be a head. Head means that we should be leaders, we should lead and not follow. Now, when we come down to the halachot of those things, we have two minhagim. Some minhagim hold that you do the simanim only on the first night, and you don't need to do them on the second night. As Shel Avraham brings down like that, and many others. According to the Kabbalah, and definitely according to Sfaradi minhag, and the way the Ben Ish Chai brings down, he says, both nights a person should do those simanim. Some even use those simanim in the morning as well. And they say the following. First of all, when you start, obviously you start with hamotzi, although some do it before, between the kiddush and hamotzi, although that's not the preferable way, but if somebody does it this way, he has who to rely on. But the best way to do it is to first do kiddush for the Yom Tov, and if it's also on Shabbat, you do kiddush for Shabbat and Yom Tov, then you go and you wash your hands after giving bracha to the kids and to the family. You wash your hands, you come down and you eat, you say hamotzi on the chalot, and you eat at least a kazait. After you ate at least a kazait, then you're already in the meal, and now you can eat those things. There's no hefsek, any interruptions in any sort. And therefore now it's a good time to do all the simanim. It's the best time to do them before the meal, because before the meal people can eat it. Afterwards, they're already stuffed and they're not interested to eat any more of those simanim. So that's a perfect time. Therefore, when you come down to those simanim, you take first of all the dates. The dates is from the Shivat HaMinim. It comes first, and therefore use that first. That's the best fruit to start with. But you have to make a bracha, borei pri ha'etz, on the date, because it's even in the middle of a meal, if you eat a fruit, you have to say a bracha on it. So you take one, you say first the bracha, borei pri ha'etz, you eat after you check it. The dates must be checked. The dates are always, in every box you'll find something, a bug, a worm, infestation of eggs. I eat a lot of dates from all different companies, and I constantly find those. How do you check them? We have other shiurim that I visually explain, but the simple idea is that you split it into half before you eat it. You take out the pit from the middle, and you put it to the light, whether it is the light above you, the light that's shining, or if you have a window and it's a sunny day, you put it through the window, and then it shines through and you see what's in it. After you checked it, if a person wants to prepare beforehand for everybody so they don't have to check during the meal, you can do that. It doesn't have to be a whole date. You split the date, you check a bunch of them, and you serve them on the table. That could be even preferable to do it that way, because there's many people that don't know how to check, or that wouldn't check. There's also kids that are not so equipped with checking those things. Therefore, when you start with the date, you say the bracha and you eat a piece of that date. Then you take a second date. That's the way the Ben Ish Chai explains. And now you say the bracha. What's the bracha that you say? Yeh ratzon she'itamu oivenu. Why? What's the connection? Itamu. Tamar is itamu. Date is tamar. Itamu oivenu. Our enemies should be gone, should be destroyed, and therefore you do it on the second date. You say Yehi Ratzon Sheitamu Ivenu, and you finish that bracha and you eat it. Then you proceed. Now there's different orders in different sidurim, different minhagim. I'm going right now according to the order of the Ben Ish Chai, but each one should go according to his minhag, whether it is something that you follow in the sidur. It really doesn't have much difference, the order that you do it, but this is the order that the Ben Ish Chai put down in Parashat Nitzavim Ot Daled. He says, "V'achar kach yochal rubia." What's the rubia? We already said the rubia. In Arabic, it's called lubia, and that is the black-eyed pea. Again, the black-eyed pea is also infested with bugs in them, and therefore this needs to be checked before Yom Tov. And we also demonstrated how to check the black eyed pea for those that want to see it, how to actually do it hands-on. I show exactly with the demonstration. It needs to be boiled, and afterwards it needs to cool down and check a bunch at a time, but there's a system of how to clean it, but you can't eat those black eyed peas without checking them because they are infested. If a person didn't check, happened that he didn't check, or he has other items that he didn't check. There's two Gemarot. One Gemara says that יהיה רגיל אדם לאכול, and one Gemara says יהיה אדם רגיל לראות בראש השנה. So the Kaf HaChaim writes that if a person didn't check, or he doesn't want to eat for any reason, health reason, he's not in a mood, he doesn't like this type of food, he doesn't have to eat. You don't have to force yourself to eat. You can bring it to the table and just look at it and say the bracha. It's better to eat, but even without eating, you can say the Yehi Ratzon, the brachot of Yehi Ratzon, and use Hashem's name. Yehi Ratzon, Hashem, Elokeinu, Velokei Avotenu. It's permitted to use Hashem's name when you say such a bracha. It's not considered bracha levatala in such an instance, because bracha levatala, the Mepharshim explain, is only when you have to say a bracha that's mandatory. Over here, it's not a mandatory bracha, and it's also only ratzon. It's not Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam. So therefore, you use Hashem name. This is also how the Mishnah Berurah brings down. The Dirshu explains this as well. So that's you go to the next piece, and that is the rubia. And you say, since it's called rubia, you say ratzon shirbu zchuyotenu. Next is the karti. This is also what the Gemara brings, those types of vegetables that we'll say on this. Shikartu oivenu v'sanenu. Karti, ikartu oivenu v'sanenu. What's the karti? It's either a leek, it's better to use a leek, or cabbage if you can't get a leek. Also, if you're using things that are green, you'll have to make sure that they are clean from any infestation, any bugs, any worms, and so on. Then you'll go to the silka. Silka is the beets. And you don't have to eat them the way they are, obviously. You cook them, you make something out of them, as long as they're visible and you can see them, you see what it is. You see that it's a bit, you see that it's a leek, you see that it's a black eyed pea. So that's sufficient. Obviously, you don't eat it the way it is. You have to cook it, you make something out of it that you'll be able to eat and enjoy it. Also, some things might be a little bit, they don't taste too well, or they feel a little bit, you can't eat anything that's not tasty on Rosh Hashanah. So such things you need to sweeten a little bit or cook it and make it taste well. Next you go to the kara. Kara is the pumpkin, and you say on that שתקרא הגזר דיננו ויקראו לפניך זכויותינו. That's on the pumpkin. You go from there to the rimon, the pomegranate, and you say on that שנהיה מלאים מצוות כרימון. That's one that you actually don't find that it's the same word, just like anything else. רוביה, you say ירבו זכויותינו, קרא יכרתו אויבינו ושונאינו, and so on. Over here, it's just symbolic that there's a lot of pits in it, so therefore you say that we should have a lot of mitzvot, שנהיה מלאים מצוות, just like the rimon has those pits in it. Then you go to the apple. Now, on the apple, the minhag of most people is to dip it in the honey, dip the apple in the honey. But there are poskim that say, especially by the Sfaradim, that it should be dipped not in honey, but rather in sugar. And they have also reasons behind it, that it should be dafka sugar and not honey. And this is how the Ben Shchai says. He says that yochal tapuach mevushal besukar. You cook the apple in sugar. Now, definitely, the apple should not be sour. As we explained before, sour food is not permitted on Rosh Hashanah, because you don't want to have a sour year. The whole symbol over here is that you should do different things that resemble sweetness and things that are good and not things that are sour. Also, same thing would be bitter. Bitter should be avoided on Rosh Hashanah. Many permit if it's spicy. Spicy food is good. It doesn't symbolize anything bad. Bitter symbolizes bitter things. You don't want to have a bitter year, chas v'shalom. Sour year, that's not a good thing. But spicy, there's no such thing, spicy here, or spicy is not, doesn't represent something negative. Spicy, if people want to eat a little bit spicy, that's fine, although some people stay away from that. When we're talking about things you should stay away from, there's also many that stay away from eating black grapes. They eat the white, the green grapes, but not black grapes. This is all according to Kabbalah. It's not a good thing. The Kaf HaChaim brings this down. And same thing with eating fish. There are different opinions whether one should eat fish on Rosh Hashanah, since the fish in Hebrew is called dag. Dag is Lashon de'aga, worries. It has the same wording as worries. So many stay away from the dag, from the fish. In order to stay away, it should not be something that brings out worries on Rosh Hashanah. A person on Rosh Hashanah has to be happy and not worried, and this is the way that should continue the entire year. But this is also Chacham Ovadia brings down. He says that there are those that on the contrary feel that fish is recommended because fish multiplies a lot in the water, and therefore it's a good thing. We want to be pareh veraveh kedagim, and therefore it is a good thing according to those explanations. Now, when we come to the idea of fish, that is usually what people use if they don't want to use a head of the sheep. It's who's going to bring a head of a sheep. Really, in the halakha, it's brought down to bring a head of the sheep and to say, "Yeh ratzon sheniyeh lerosh velo lezanav, v'tizkor lanu akedato velo shel Yitzchak Avinu ben Avraham Avinu alav hashalom." But even if you can bring a piece of the head of the sheep, you don't want to bring it for any reason, so they bring the head of the fish. Obviously, when you bring those things, if you plan to eat them, also one needs to make sure that they are clean, as many times you have in them worms or other bugs that needs to be removed before eating them. This is a quick summary of the things that needs to be done on the table of Rosh Hashanah. But one thing that we need to conclude with, which is very important, that the Or LeTzion explains that when we do those simanim, one needs to do them because of Rosh with seriousness and not make fun of them or make jokes. Some people take those times as an opportunity to crack jokes. It's a very serious time. It's a judgment day. It's things that are supposed to bring out the good things, as we explained in the beginning of this very short shiur, and therefore one needs to say them with such mindset, a serious mindset, so not a laugh and a jokey spirit, but rather a person should say it with kavanah, intention, the right intention, and make sure that throughout the day, the 2 days, a person should stay away as much as possible from being argumentative with anybody, with family members. Although these families are getting together, there's a lot of family dynamics, but one needs to stay away as much as he can. Try to stay as much as possible from being argumentative, definitely not fight, and definitely not get angry throughout the day. So if your kids get you angry, as they're very good at it, on those 2 days, hold yourself back and don't get carried away. Stay back, stay away from any anger on that day and any negative feeling. A person should be feeling good on that day, although it should be a mixed feeling of feeling happy, good, and fear of that very, very scary day. But those are the mixed feelings that one needs to have and not anything else, as we explained. Rosh Hashanah, Sameach, גמר חתימה טובה, כתיבה וחתימה טובה.